Hey everybody, it's John from Lake Erie Chestnuts. I get questions all the time about what to do, how to start a chestnut orchard, what should I be doing right now. So I thought I'd take you out in the deep snow of Lake Erie Chestnuts here in northwest Pennsylvania. We're closest to the town of Corey, Pennsylvania, and do a little winter walkthrough and talk about kind of the steps that it takes. So if you don't have any chestnuts now, it may be difficult to get some right now, but if you can buy some seedling trees, you usually can find some of those. Those could be found through Route 9 Cooperative or Empire Chestnut Company in Ohio, Washington Chestnut Company, but you can find local growers. Whether you get good products, it's hard to say, but I know that Route 9 Cooperative in Carrollton, Ohio has really good quality chestnuts. So you could talk with them and see if they have some seedlings available. Otherwise, and you'd want to plant those, you know, there's variability because chestnuts can grow in a large area, and you got to pick soil that doesn't stay wet all summer. They don't like wet feet, and they can handle a little bit of wintertime dampness maybe, but you don't want to plant them in a swamp. People have had success building up berms and planting into that if that's all they had for planting, but you want to find a suitable site, and you want to plant your trees. If they're bare root, you can plant them whenever you get them, meaning trees that are dormant with no leaves and just a bare root. You can plant those anytime, even if it's still freezing. If you can break the ground and plant them, you can get them in the ground. Otherwise, if you have seedlings that you've cold stratified, you want to start those anywhere between now and April. I initially did February, but I can't plant mine until late May, early June here, so I don't start planting mine inside until early April, maybe late March. Otherwise, they just get the requirements, they get too tall, too much for an inside little nursery to handle. You got to really pay close attention, and it's much harder to harden them off to the sun. If you're going to plant them outside, you can plant them just after the last frost. Plant those outside. Then, if you have established trees, let's go with the assumption that you have some chestnut trees in the ground. There's debate on fertilizing them, but using a publication from the University of Missouri, which they updated in 2022, I follow that pretty much, and especially trying to get my trees above deer browse height. The trees can be fertilized. You base it off of the nitrogen concentration. You can do the calculation. I believe it's on page 12 of their publication. I will link to it, how to calculate that. I use a balance 10-10-10 or 12-12-12 and just calculate the nitrogen piece. And of that fertilization, when the buds start to swell, so when this tree starts to swell its leaf buds in the spring, here, that's usually in late April, you sprinkle 2/3 of your yearly calculated fertilizer in a circle as wide as the leaves are. Sprinkle that out, and you do 2/3, and then right when the leaves, or right when it starts to blossom, you do the other third. So 2/3 at leaf bud swell, early spring, and then the final third in the when the blossoms start to come out. So you got your trees fertilized, and look at this snow, guys. I have a John Deere 5065E, and it was all it could do. It was plowing snow with the front end of it. It's got ag tires, I think 26-inch tires in the front. It's deep snow out here in Northwest PA this year. It's a real winter. So now you got to, as your chestnut orchard, if you're on the East Coast, you're going to end up dealing with weevils. And I've had the first reports of weevils in my chestnuts, which is very irritating, because ways you can prevent that is maintaining a clean forest floor. The life cycle of the weevils, a 2 or 3 year cycle, depending on if it's a giant weevil or the lesser weevil or whatever, greater or lesser. And they get their eggs deposited through the burr into the nuts, and then the nut hits the ground. They crawl out, they eat for a couple of days, crawl into the ground, live 2 or 3 years, turning the insects, fly up and redo the cycle. And because the American chestnut died off, there's lesser amounts of the weevil, but as people get more orchards, they're going to show up. And right now it sounds like the only recommended control of that, other than picking up your nuts every single day, getting rid of burrs, which is almost impossible because the burrs drop irregularly. You just can't get out here every single day for over a 45-day period, which is why people like doing grafted nuts. You can get a more predicted time frame, but we've talked about the problems with grafted trees in the north. But the only spray out there is the common one that you've heard for years, carbaryl, which is 7. You got to do 3 sprayings 2 weeks apart. I'll post the time frame in the general area on the screen here. So now you've got your trees planted. You've started the ones inside if you're going to start some. You've planted them outside when you got your bare root trees, or you planted them after the last frost if you hardened them off. Then you got to get the trees fertilized, and we've talked about getting to harvest. What are we doing for the trees in the meantime? Well, you want to maintain the orchard floor. There's a lot of debate on what to have there, whether you grow clover, what's the appropriate crop. To be honest with you, I don't do much other than mow. We have a lot of natural white clover, which is nitrogen fixing. So anyway, the key is you want to reduce competition. So if you have them in a tube, you're going to want to maintain that tube at least once a month. Gently lift it up, make sure there's not a mouse nest in there, make sure there's not a hornet nest in mine. I've had hornet nests. You got to make sure there's no wasp in the top. And then you want to make sure, if you have wire cages, that the trees haven't blown over, that they're not rubbing against the wire and trying to fix that. You can, do various things to solve those issues, but you want to just walk the orchard at least once a month, which is pretty easy for those of us growing these. We like to walk them. You can do weed suppression. You can manually pull all the grass for a couple feet away from the base of the tree. You can put rocks. You can put weed barrier protective landscape fabric. But to be honest with you, if you're on 10 acres and you've got 450 trees and you're running a life where you're working and you got kids and you got sports, you're probably not going to be able to do that as intentionally as you want unless you just don't have any other life, which is fine. And if you have extra time, you can come do mine. So you've started your seeds, you've planted your trees, you've fertilized them along the schedule of the calculated amounts. You've maintained and kept the weeds at least shorter than the tree. Even if you just let it all go, you have to beat it back the 2 or 3 foot circle so that at least the leader of the tree is taller than the weeds. At least that'll give it a fighting chance. And I've had great growth with my trees without weeding or spraying around the base. You got to be real careful with young trees spraying because if you use spray, glyphosate would be something you could use, but you're going to have to shield the bark because you don't want a bark spray. And that's a way, basal bark spraying is a way to kill trees or permanently limit them. So you got the trees planted, you maintain the weeds, you've checked the tubes and the wire cages, and you've sprayed for weevils. How do you do the spraying? Well, if you're doing huge orchards, you're going to have a sprayer's license, so I'm fighting that battle right now on what to do. You don't want to be selling wormy chestnuts. It's fine if you want to sell them for growing chestnuts, but if you want to sell them for eating, people don't like eating juicy worms. It's just a fault that some people have. I think it's just delicious, but some people are picky. Now it's time to harvest. So as you prepare to harvest, you're going to want to mow that orchard floor shorter and shorter and shorter. I actually mow mine down to about 2.5 inches the last couple mowings so that it is real easy to pick up the chestnuts. And before you know it, you've got all the chestnuts harvested. You're going to have a refrigerator space. Right now I have 2 refrigerators that I can store mine in, but eventually it's going to have to be walk-in level refrigeration with humidity controls and all that if I want to take this to the next level. And that's a battle I fight on, do I want to take it to the next level? Then you get the chestnuts harvested. What do you do with them all? It won't be long. You'll be harvesting so many chestnuts you won't know what to do with them. And you can't just leave them laying on the ground. If you're trying to do it as a business, you can't just leave it lay on the ground and say you'll let the deer get the rest. That's a recipe for really making your weevil population grow out just exponentially. But I thought I'd give you that kind of little timeline of what you should expect to be doing. Things you can do right now is be getting your growing room set up, getting your outdoor area set up, kind of something like that. You're stuck inside in the terrible weather. You know, the stupid groundhog said there's going to be 6 more weeks of winter a couple days ago. So look at these beautiful trees here. Stupid groundhog said there's going to be 6 more weeks of winter. So, you know, if anybody wants to swing by Punxsutawney and take care of them, wouldn't mind that. But we got a beautiful tree here behind me. We got snow coming over the one hillside away, coming into me right now. I'm going to pack up old Johnny here and head to the shed. Hope you guys' growing plans are coming along. Can't wait for some good weather, some green stuff in the woods, but right now it's beautiful. Just a little tired of it. It's a little monotonous. But out here just kind of checking the property, walking the chestnuts. You can see right here, I'm just looking right here, there's one snapped. Right here, you see that big branch snapped. And that just happens when there's heavy snow loads, or we had ice the other day, and it just happens. It's Mother Nature's way of pruning the trees for you. Hope you guys have a great day. If you follow me, watch several videos, click the like button, consider subscribing. Remember, guys and gals, if you're not growing, you're dying. Catch you next time.